The issue is all of these emerging markets around the world where you no longer have an interstate system connecting them to this global highway, right? You have dirt road on and off ramps littered with potholes going through the Grand Canyon, and your car only has 3 tires. And stablecoins are the first technology that come in and actually build a bridge over that just bad underlying infrastructure. They're the first technology that come in and build actual like on-ramps over that underlying infrastructure and make it possible for these countries to be able to interact on the same global financial system.
All right, you are not thinking enough about stablecoins. I'm going to repeat that. You, our listener, are not thinking enough about stablecoins. Why do I say that? Because I don't think we understand the technological and financial revolution that is happening at this moment in finance, which is not just finance like tech bro finance. We're talking about the ability to move money across borders in seconds. We are talking about the livelihoods of billions of people and how that can be reimagined. We are talking about the opportunity to not have currencies be devalued and deflationary because someone in political power decides they want more control over a population. We just are not thinking enough about the revolution that is stablecoins. I've been obsessed with this for a long time. Even our parent company, Bullish, who went public last week when we're recording this, took over $1 billion of the proceeds of that sale in stablecoins because they know the power of this technology. So for this week's episode, we wanted to talk more about the payments and stablecoin ecosystem. We've been featuring a number of people this season on this topic. And for today, Chris Maurice, CEO of Yellow Card. Yellow Card is one of the larger players in the infrastructure side of payments, specifically on stablecoins. I think 99% of their business is about enabling some of the largest businesses in the world, as well as localized applications in all different jurisdictions to figure out how to send money around the world at speed and at scale and be able to off-ramp it and on-ramp it as needed. So after the break, we'll be back with Chris Maurice from Yellow Card. And I repeat one more time, we need to think more about stablecoins.
Midnight is introducing a novel approach to token distribution. The Midnight Glacier Drop is the first in a multi-phase distribution of the Night token aimed at empowering a broad, diverse community to secure the future of the Midnight network. Holders of ADA, BTC, ETH, SOL, XRP, BNB, AVAX, and BAT are eligible to participate in the Glacier Drop phase. Help usher in the next generation of blockchain with rational privacy and cooperative tokenomics on the Midnight network. To learn more about the Midnight Glacier Drop, visit midnight.gd and claim your night.
All right, welcome back. We are here with Chris Maurice. Chris, CEO of Yellow Card. Chris, you've been in this game now for 10, 11 years in the crypto and payment space. I'm interested in, one, just give us the TLDR on Yellow Card, on yourself. How did you get here? Why was this interesting to you? Tell me about like the Pokemon to Yellow Card pipeline. Just give us everything.
Yes. Well, look, Sam, it is great to be here with you, sir. It's been a number of years. I mean, I got into the space originally in 2013, and COVID counts as 12 years. So I think that makes it almost 24, actually.
Yeah.
But, look, long story short, got into the space back in 2013. My now co-founder, Justin, is the guy that would walk around college parties evangelizing the gospel of Bitcoin. He's about 6'7", very sweaty. He'd have 6 people at a college party, arms spread wide, just sermon on the mountain in Bitcoin. And let me tell you, there's nothing the ladies loved back in 2013, like 2 guys sweaty talking about Bitcoin. And so, yeah, by 2015, I was just fully down the rabbit hole, right? And realized this is the best thing ever. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. We tried a number of things in the States. None of them worked. Most of them were hilarious. And what we landed on was we were going to put a gift card in CVS, Walmart, places like that. You'd walk in and buy this gift card, redeem it for Bitcoin. And started building that out. And then one day I met this Nigerian man at a Wells Fargo in Auburn, Alabama, the capital of innovation, who was sending $200 to his family. And the bank charged him $90 to send $200. And I thought, well, that's crazy, right? How could it possibly cost that much? So I talked to the guy. Hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? It's free, it's instant, it's fun, all this great stuff. And went home and just started thinking, what would this guy's mom do with $200 in Bitcoin? Like, you can't buy food with that. You can't pay rent with that. What problem are we actually solving here? And so I don't think I knew where Nigeria was on a map at the time. They don't teach you nearly as much about Africa as you might expect in the Louisiana education system, which I know that might be hard for you to hear, Sam, but it is true.
I know. Painful.
And I started doing all this research, right? I wanted to understand the country and the currency and the continent and the banking system. While doing all this research, I realized if I want to understand Nigeria, I need to speak to somebody from there. I put out an ad online that said, looking to speak to Nigerian men.
It was in Craigslist, of course, and a lot of interesting things happen. Yeah.
It turns out it could have been worded better.
Yes.
But I got exactly what I wanted, which was my DMs full of Nigerian men. So it was a great summer. Basically, ended up meeting this guy, learned that Nigerians are the most convincing people on the face of this planet. And within about a month and a half of meeting this Nigerian man on the internet, ended up getting a passport and going to Lagos, Nigeria, my first international flight of my life. I had been on a plane 4 times in my life before starting the company. Landed in Lagos on a 6-day-old passport, no visa, no shots, and a one-way ticket that we spent all of our money on. So that is how we got started.
Why didn't the Bitcoin credit card or gift cards in Walmart work?
I think it could have given more time. The big issue that we were running into back then was regulation. Right. I mean, Walmart and these guys were not exactly keen on putting, look, this was before even Cash App had done Bitcoin. And so, these guys were not keen on the idea of putting a Bitcoin card in their store. And Bitcoin was still money laundering, and it was this, and it was that, and it was still the Wild West days. So I think, look, the world has come a long way. I still contend that would be a phenomenal product, right? I'd go buy it for every birthday party.
Especially today, yeah.
Yeah, but it's something that, it was a little bit too early then.
It's funny, in 2015, I bought for my daughter and my nephew Bitcoin, and the only way to do it then as a gift like this was a paper wallet. So I just gave him a piece of paper and I said, there's $50 of Bitcoin in this. And of course, both of them lost those pieces of paper. Like, luckily I had taken photographs of both, but I agreed. It was like, it would have been much easier just to me to, here's an envelope, here's a card,
100%.
Phrase on the back when you're ready. And here we go. So
today it would be great. How do you gift Bitcoin to somebody today? Right.
Agreed.
It's a pain in the ass. So.
I've wondered this many times why no one has created this exact product. So we'll start a side business later, but okay, so you get to Lagos, you're seeing the opportunity, which it sounds like you'd already figured out sort of there was something in crypto that you wanted to be involved with, and you guys start Yellow Card. Fast forward, you're I think on your Series C already and raised millions and tens of millions of dollars to do this. So what was your pitch? How did you get people excited about this, and how's that been going since then?
In the early days, turns out that if you go to a bunch of American investors and tell them that you're going to sell Bitcoin in Nigeria, they aren't super receptive. I still don't know what it was about the pitch of selling Bitcoin in Nigeria that people thought was not a phenomenal idea. Yeah, again, this was 2017, right? 2018 that this was going on. So people were still skeptical on the space. It's evolved a lot over time, right? It took us a while to actually be able to raise money, right? It took 2 years to pull together our seed round. And the only reason that we pulled it together is because we started doing very well from a revenue standpoint, and then people couldn't ignore it anymore. I think that where that has evolved to, and when you look at what we do today, now we are the largest licensed stablecoin payments infrastructure provider for emerging markets. So we work across the board with a number of these large companies, right? The Visas and PayPals and SpaceX and people like that, helping provide them the ability to actually make payments using this technology, right? Everybody talks about replacing SWIFT and replacing correspondent banking in this industry, but nobody is really building the hard tech to use this as an alternative to SWIFT and to correspondent banking. And so that's what we do, right? That's what we come in and provide. And so, we work across the board with large institutions, banks, et cetera, on helping them use stablecoins to facilitate international payments, manage their treasury, and access dollars. That's what these guys are really interested in at the end of the day, is just access to the dollar.
It's so funny. Most of the conversations we have about crypto are happening in the United States. They're happening in Europe, occasionally in kind of the bigger, more cosmopolitan cities in Asia. And we also have the luxury. We work a lot with Stellar and with Cello and with Ripple and all these people who are looking at the payment side and who, like you, are really focused on Africa and the emerging markets of LATAM. And I know that's an area you guys are about to come into that we'll talk about in a second. But for those of us in a first world country like the US, we're both in New York right now, it's not like payment apps are a problem. It's not like banking is a problem. And so what is it? I mean, I understand the idea of, hey, we have billions of people who need bank accounts and need to get paid and access to a global monetary system. But what is it that's so exciting for you about the idea of Africa and then now coming into Brazil and Bangladesh and all the other places you guys are coming into?
What gets me excited about it is the practicality of the use case. To your point, a lot of the conversations, especially in the early days, that I was having in crypto, that you still have in crypto, obviously, look, no offense to, anybody that's building on this stuff, but it's just like trading dog and cat coin back and forth, right? And how do you cut out latency so that people can trade dog coin faster and make it more decentralized and, things like that, right? And that just isn't an interesting use case to me. Look, it'll always be there, right? There will always be people that want to speculate on these assets and things like that. So it's not going away. But it's just not an interesting use case to me. The stuff that gets me excited and gets me out of bed is the practicality of the way that this technology is used in these markets. I don't know about you, but I think for me and for a lot of the people that got into the space early, we fell in love with the technology and sort of the problems that it promises to solve, as opposed to getting into the space for the speculative nature of it. And look, the speculative nature is great. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it hasn't been kind to me and probably to you and pretty much everybody else in the space right now. But it's not actually solving problems. It's not actually fixing what this technology can fix, which is international payments and broken payment systems, broken banking systems. That's what really gets me excited. And look, the way that I see it is you have the US and Europe and these other major developed economies where money moves on a global superhighway, so to speak. And that's SWIFT and that's correspondent banking and all of this. And look, if I need to send money from the US to Europe, it works generally fine. I know people love to complain about it in this industry, but it's not actually that hard. I don't know. It's pretty easy to send money to Europe if you need to. The issue is not the developed markets, right? The issue is all of these emerging markets around the world, where you no longer have an interstate system connecting them to this global highway, right? You have dirt road on and off ramps littered with potholes going through the Grand Canyon, and your car only has 3 tires. And stablecoins are the first technology that come in and actually build a bridge over that just bad underlying infrastructure. They're the first technology that come in and build actual on-ramps over that underlying infrastructure and make it possible for these countries to be able to interact on the same global financial system.
So this season, we've been focusing a lot on this show on how crypto native brands built, how they went from kind of 0 to 1, if you will. Tell us about those early years at Yellow Card when you're saying, hey, I have an idea, I'm hopping on a plane, I'm going to Nigeria, and then fast forward to maybe our Series A or your seed round. What were you guys doing? How were you getting the word out about the product when you were doing that?
We did it the old-fashioned way, which is you get on a plane and you go there and you tell people about it, right? Anybody that'll listen. I still remember sitting in the hotel we were staying in. We had one hotel room, right? Look, we were there for a while, just meeting with anybody that would meet with us, anybody that wanted to talk to us about payments, whether it was banks, whether it was people that were involved in the industry or interested in Bitcoin and crypto and all of that. The thing is you have to just pound the pavement in the early days, no matter what it is that you're doing. You have to go be on ground, especially in these markets, especially in emerging markets and other parts of the world. You have to go be there. You have to go just pound the pavement and sit there until you figure it out. And there's no timeline. That can take a week, that can take a year, that can take the rest of your life. Look, I would argue I'm still figuring it out. It's always a work in progress, but that's just a critical piece of it. And I think, about the time of the Series A is also when we discovered stablecoins. Or not discovered, but that's when we finally listed stablecoins. And so this was 2020 going into 21, we listed USDT for the first time. Before that, we were essentially 100% Bitcoin. It was, just a fully Bitcoin company. We went in a day from 100% Bitcoin to about 70% Bitcoin, 30% USDT. We went in 4 months from 100% Bitcoin to 99% USDT. And so that was when we started to really realize this is a payments use case. We started talking more to customers, talking more to the all businesses and the companies that we were working with. And we realized very quickly that these guys are using stablecoins, using Bitcoin previously to make international payments, to buy things from China, right? Imports, to pay a supplier in the UK, to import food, to import, medicine from India and this and that. It was such a clear payments use case that it made sense that everybody was using the dollar, right? The international payment currency of the world. That was when we started to have that realization, and we just really dove in. And we really just pushed and made it happen on the stablecoin front.
I love that. I know you've told your story and been at Consensus with us a lot of times, and you're all over talking about this stuff. I have a thesis that continues to come up for me, which is not unrelated to like what Balaji wrote in the network state, but this idea that like landmass doesn't matter as much anymore because digital communities, really with the rise of gaming and the internet and social media, all sort of don't care where the physical borders are. They actually care more about the emotional borders, the passion-based borders. I want to be part of the Taylor Swift community, or I want to be part of the Ripple community. Like either of those have a lot of overlap. And with the lubricant of the internet that says I can do this now at speed of thought, that we needed an internet-based money. And we didn't want it to be governmental. We also maybe didn't want it to be volatile. Like I think that's one of the beauties of stablecoins is knowing there's a one-to-one match somewhere in a treasury. There's really excitement there. You guys released a stablecoin report. You talked about, I think it was about Argentina, where like 70% of all crypto transactions are happening in stablecoins because that's a market that has been historically like devalued over and over and over again. So when you think of Africa and Asia and Latin America and all these places you're playing in, it sounds like people just wanted real money. They didn't want what was, in essence, government control of are they going to be able to eat, pay their rent, be able to work? Like that stuff feels like such a fundamental problem that you guys come in, you're not the only ones doing it, but you come in and suddenly someone says, oh, I can actually build something. I can actually create something that feels stable in my life. And I assume that there's a lot of feedback you get that really is rewarding in that world.
100%. Look, and this is, I get into arguments with the real crypto native people all the time about this. The thing is if you talk to like any normal person, they don't like this whole, like we can sit here and debate whether or not governmental money is good. The guy on the street doesn't care like at all. Like that's not his biggest problem by any means is whether or not the government should be allowed to print money. People have never known any other system. They have their own problems to deal with. They have their own families to support. They're not interested in Bitcoin or any of this other stuff. They want their money to be worth the same amount today as it is tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. They want stability. To your point, what's more important than sort of breaking free from like government controlled currency is stability. That's what's the most important. And look, you see this even in the US. This is not unique to emerging markets. Look, like my mom is not interested in massively growing the amount of money that she has and earning crazy yield and, whatever. She's fine sitting that money in a savings account as long as the money is still there tomorrow. For most people, that's all that they're concerned about. And again, to your point, in places like Argentina and certain other countries, where people have woken up in the past and the money has not been there the next day, or the money was worth significantly less the next day. This is a real problem and a real fear that they still have to live with. And it's one of those things, the post-hyperinflation stress disorder, whatever you want to call it, it's a real thing that a lot of people in these countries don't recover from that standpoint. And the way that they think about money is just fundamentally changed because of that experience. It's one of those things where people just want stability. And the dollar for basically everybody around the world is that semblance of stability. It's the most stable currency that you can still reasonably use and spend. It's not gold where it's a pain in the ass to store it and to do anything with it and whatever. I can spend dollars anywhere on earth. I can use it to pay for literally anything. And it's the dollar. So it's always going to be worth $1. That's really what people are concerned about, right? It's just, how do you get that stability? How do you ensure, again, that my money is still worth, today what it is tomorrow?
But if there's a great programmer or designer who is in a small village in Rwanda or Buenos Aires, I may not be able to be in New York, be able to get them that money for their services, right? So that's
100%.
really where you guys step in. I know you guys are expanding. You're going into a lot of new markets. This is new. Tell us about what it meant to, or what it means to go from Africa and a couple of other countries to really saying, hey, let's go a little bit more global. It's Pakistan, it's Colombia. Why now? And is that really based on just we figured it out, or is that based on the world needs it?
Look, it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's these are markets that take time. So
yes, of course.
It is a little bit of both. But I think that a big piece of it for us is that the problems that we've become accustomed to solving are not unique specifically to the countries that we work in. These problems exist across the world in different forms. And so one thing that we've been careful to do from the beginning is build our system and build the products that we have like Legos. That's how we think about it internally, is build these products like Legos. And the beauty of Legos is you might want to build the Eiffel Tower and I want to build the Statue of Liberty, and we can do it with the same blocks. And so it's one of those things where we continue to look for where else can we solve these problems? Where can we do this for these large corporates that we're already working with? Where can we help bring them to be able to solve their problems, to be able to continue to grow and to continue to help them to grow? The countries on this list, and look, I will be the first to tell you that there are many more coming. The countries on this list are a great start in terms of the partners that we have. Where are they having problems? Where else do they need help solving these issues with payments? And we're able to apply a lot of what we've learned working so locally and granularly across the continent to just make it work in all these other parts of the world. I can tell you, look, after some of the countries that I have been to, some of these other ones are very easy. So from that standpoint, it's been fun, right? I mean, look, this is the part of the job that I love, frankly. I don't love the having to run around and actually run a business and all that. It's not none of that. I mean, look, you do what you got to do, and it's not as much fun, right? The expansion and like the new frontiers, that's the stuff that's exciting. So
you mentioned MasterCard earlier. When we think of like MasterCard, Visa, we think of like Coinbase or MoonPay, all the different Shopify's and Robinhoods, like all the different folks that are playing in the space. Are these healthy competitive opportunities? Are these all partners? You're an infra play. So is this really about you just saying we're going to figure out the plumbing and let you guys be the marketers out there?
Everybody that you named either is a partner already or will be a partner. We work with a number of the companies in this space that provide various institutional grade infrastructure and systems for and solutions for payments. And the reason that these guys all work with us is because these are difficult markets that require a specific touch. The reality is, I mean, look, we do dollar to stablecoin, we do euro, we do all of that. The thing is that major currencies are not that difficult. Anybody can spin up the ability to do major currencies. And frankly, there's going to be a lot of competition coming in from banks. You're going to see all of the major banks get into this. Earmark this, within 3 years, JP Morgan will allow you to deposit USDC and other stablecoins. And it'll go directly into your account, whether you're a business, an institution, whatever, and it's all going to be one-to-one. And it's going to be the JPM coin, it's going to be USDC, it's going to be all these. And so you're going to end up in this world where there are a number of stable coins, there are a number of chains, there's a sort of all of that from these banks and from these other large financial institutions, that it's going to be extremely difficult for any startup to compete. I mean, like, how do you look, if I told you that JP Morgan was going to get into the game tomorrow, like, how do you compete against the largest bank in the world, right? They have a little bit more money than us, last time I checked. So that's... And so, it's difficult to compete in those markets. I think the way that we see it is we have a lot of really unique capabilities in the countries that we support. And we want to continue to have those unique capabilities, continue to grow those unique capabilities, and continue to work with these large banks and corporates. So there's a reason that these guys continue to work with us, and they're not doing it themselves. I mean, they have tried to do it themselves. In fact, most of them find us because they tried to do it themselves, ran into some problem that we have to fix. So.
I love that. I guess the last question I want to ask you around that is, what should our audience take away? I keep thinking about all of the thousands and thousands of medium-sized businesses, small businesses in this world who are not yet thinking through the lens of, I should be taking stablecoins as payment, or I should be paying my vendors in this technology. I get that the JP Morgans of the world have it on their radar as the Visas and MasterCards and the Shopifys. But what do you think that like middle management business is not thinking about right now, why this is so important? And I say that through the lens of, you mentioned wires earlier. It used to cost me $20 to send a wire across to Europe. Now, if the person has Venmo or Zelle or whatever it may be, I can get them some cash that way. Someone is getting upset about that, right? And there's going to be resistance. So I assume there's a lot of people who are looking at the POS systems that are archaic and looking at the traditional payment methods around the world and looking at a yellow card and being like, fuck these guys, they're going to take my business away. I gotta upgrade, right? So what do we do to get those small and medium-sized businesses to recognize that they have to be thinking about this future where we're a stablecoin powered economy?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think if you're a small to medium business and you're seeing what's going on, you're seeing JP Morgan investing heavily in the space. You're seeing Citibank investing heavily in the space. You're seeing Stripe investing heavily in the space. I mean, Square and Block, these guys are the OGs. I mean, they even changed their name to Block, right? So, but you're seeing all of these major payments companies, PayPal, et cetera, all these legacy players are investing heavily in the space, Visa, MasterCard, et cetera. And so if you are a small, medium business and you're not, what is it that you're missing, right? Because, you're missing something clearly, right? And the thing is that, no matter what size business you are, if you do anything that requires cross-border payments, that can be made more effective through stablecoins. I'm not going to sit here and say that every business on earth should use stablecoins to send money from like Delaware to Wyoming. That's just not a legitimate use case that I subscribe to. And look, even for payments, if you run a baked goods shop in Maine, you don't need to accept stablecoin payments. Credit cards work great. In fact, my Visa card pays me 2%. I don't have to pay for 45 days and I get consumer protection. So if your muffins give me food poisoning, I can charge back, right? So there are local payment systems and local payment methods that work. But if you cross borders in any way, shape, or form, you should be looking at stablecoins to improve those efficiencies, because there are so many efficiencies that can be improved with stablecoins when you're crossing borders. But to your point earlier, where physical space doesn't matter as much and physical borders don't matter as much as digital borders, that is still true, except in financial services for some reason, where, just crossing borders with any bank, with anything is just a total pain in the ass. And so again, stablecoins come in, they just make all of that so much more effective. The big message is there is a better way to move money. Every business that you talk to has problems with money, with moving it, with handling it, with all of that. There is a better way, and that better way exists. It's ready. It's there. It's just a matter of actually taking the time to invest and dive in.
Well, I'm assuming that the reason it was so hard to move money across borders was because someone was making money, and that was on purpose.
Look, that's still the reason. So
right, exactly, still the reason. All right, final question, Chris. When you think of the other entrepreneurs, CEOs, builders in the space, who's someone you look up to that inspires you to do what you're doing?
Oh man. Look, I'm a big fan of Jack Dorsey, and I think specifically the thing that made me a big fan of his is back in 2016, running two public companies, having the balls to put Bitcoin on a financial services app that was already in the hands of, 50 million Americans at the time. And to go deal with, look, I've had the pleasure of getting to know, that team pretty well over the years. And the stories that those guys have of dealing with the banks and the regulators and everybody else threatening them back then. Because it's like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to collapse the financial system, right? Launching a Bitcoin product to the masses. So, just the, having the gall to do that I mean, it takes a special type of leadership and that sort of thing, in my opinion, right? So I'm a big fan of his, big fan of some of the decisions that he's made that have pushed this space forward so much more. I mean, when you go back and look at like Cash App listing Bitcoin, I mean, that was, in my opinion, one of the pivotal things that led to like the 2017 bull run, is that you got this in the hands of everyone. Things like that, like the people that are not afraid to, how do you say, like make the calls and do things that move the business forward, but also move the industry as a whole forward. Just massive props.
I love it. All right, Chris Maurice, CEO of Yellow Card. Congrats on all your success. We look forward to seeing where you guys go, especially with your expansion, and appreciate you spending time with us on Gen Z today.
Appreciate it, sir.